and we're going to talk about how 91% of online merchants fear AI-powered cyber attacks, and two-thirds have already reported that they have become victims of said attacks. Now, online merchants of all time, of all sizes, from the largest e-commerce companies to the smallest of telemedia service providers, are now seeking or now seeing increased AI-powered cyber attacks. So the question is, Paul, what is the answer, and who has given us the answer?
Well, if only we had the answer. But I think that this is an interesting report that came out from a company called Ravelin, who do all things cyber security, and they've looked at, I think, e-commerce in general, but they've broken it down into sort of retailers and digital goods merchants and marketplaces, and sort of looked at how they're being impacted by fraud and where that fraud's coming from, and tried to posit some answers. But the headline thing is that, like you say, 91% of these sort of merchants are worried about AI cyber attacks. And two-thirds of them, they've already been victim of them, and it's quite a significant problem. And the thing is, like with fraud, it's always been a sort of, they come up with new ways of doing fraud, then the industry combats it, and so we move. But the rate of change is getting quicker and quicker because they're using AI. The criminals are using AI, and it's a huge problem. In fact, sort of looking at the Raveling data in more detail for the digital goods segment alone, 71% of them are being attacked already that they know of by AI, or fraud that's perpetrated in some way with AI powering it, which is huge. I mean, most of it is to do with payment fraud, and it's costing billions of dollars. In fact, sort of in the research, looking at all of the companies they talk to, something like sort of 20% of them reckon they lose at least $15 million a year to fraud. It's extraordinary. I mean, that's obviously includes a lot of very big companies, but I think that's a lot of money to lose. And I think all businesses of all sizes that are trying to sell digital things online are losing money. Interestingly, some of the other research into this is that the cost isn't just revenue loss. It's also sort of like one of the sort of biggest things that companies are most worried about. In fact, 45% of them is brand image damage, and the effect that then has on customer loyalty and customer sign-ups and all that kind of thing. And even about a quarter of them are all also worried about the impact it has on internal staff morale. So the impact of this is enormous across all these businesses. And I think it is something that those that operate in the telemedia world do also experience. And I think anybody selling anything online is going to be a victim of this. But it's a huge problem, and the costs are much bigger than just the money. It's a very interesting report, really well worth downloading. The link will appear. The link to the story we covered it in, which has the report link in it, will appear on the screen magically. But download it. It's an excellent, really fascinating report. A really, really good read.
Yeah, no, Revelin are a very interesting company, fraud prevention, payment optimization platform. And I think the point you make about, um, the point you make is important that there are lots of other costs associated with fraud. I think when fraud prevention and compliance and all of those things were introduced to the telemedia industry, it was seen as an additional layer of costs and something which reduced engagement levels but in fact it's really about striking a balance between protecting your business and the customer experience, and getting that balance is really important. And companies like Ravelin, Avena, MCP, I mean, are very much aware of that. And companies within the telemedia industry, having been involved in this area for such a long time, do understand that fraud prevention and compliance is not simply a cost. It's really about protecting
Mm.
revenues. I think one of the other important things to remember is that whilst we often talk about, AI driven, organized gang, dark web type serious frauds, There is also now elements of the industries, particularly with digital goods, which hark back to, the good old days of premium rate, where you're actually getting customers being squeezed by the cost of living, who are almost kind of starting to create another level, which is the sort of, if you can call it, petty fraud. um, and therefore it's also, you get your chargeback issues still occurring, and it's also very important from a merchant to understand and identify good customers versus, those bad customers. And obviously, when you've got a good base of customers, you can breed or generate customer loyalty, which obviously creates more long-term revenues and a better customer base. So, it's not just the big, sort of cyber attacks that people are suffering with at the moment. It is also now, those sort of young tech-savvy consumers who don't have as much money in their
Mm,
pockets as perhaps they thought they had, and they can see ways through that. So these kinds of systems and these kinds of companies are absolutely essential for protecting telemedia revenues, reputation, and helping us drive our business forward. And I'm glad to say, I think also, if you look at the Revelin website, it isn't all bad news, because whilst AI is being introduced and deployed, for nefarious reasons, equally companies like Revlin, MCP, Avena are using the same kinds of tools to combat it. And in some ways, there's an optimistic view that in fact the two probably, can in fact cancel each other out, and that, there is a solution to this.
mm.
And they are, you would expect extremely positive. But I think we're going to hear more from them, and certainly over the coming year, if you attend any of the Telemedia events, you are going to hear a lot more from, as I say, the Impellos of this world, the MCPs, the Avenas, and all the other great compliance and fraud prevention companies that support our industry so well. If you want to hear more about the developing area, or this developing area, and news stories relating to fraud prevention, please do remember to like, subscribe, or comment if you're watching this on YouTube.